Yesterday, December 2nd, 2025, in the gray dawn, 2 Chinese warships closed in on a Japanese fishing boat near the volatile Senkaku Islands. Tokyo says it scrambled its most advanced F-35 stealth fighters, the first time ever over this flashpoint. But not everything matches the official stories. Subscribe now. If China and Japan have crossed a new line, what happens when these islands, already called Asia's war trigger, see the world's stealthiest jet in the sky? The truth behind the Senkaku escalation could redraw the map of power in the Pacific. At 4:30 in the morning local time, 2 Chinese Coast Guard patrol ships appeared on radar less than 10 nautical miles from Watsuri, the largest of the Senkaku Islands. Japan's Coast Guard reported the vessels entered what Tokyo claims are territorial waters, closing in on a Japanese fishing boat already operating in the area. According to the Japanese Ministry of Defense, radio warnings were issued in both Japanese and Mandarin, ordering the Chinese ships to leave immediately. For nearly 2 hours, the standoff played out in the dark, with Japanese patrol cutters maneuvering between the fishing boat and the Chinese vessels. Automatic identification system data later released by Japanese authorities showed the 2 Chinese ships lingering just inside the 12 nautical mile limit before slowly moving north. China's account tells a different story. Liu Dejun, spokesman for the China Coast Guard, said the patrols were conducting a routine rights protection cruise in waters that Beijing considers part of China. Liu said the Japanese fishing boat had entered Chinese territory illegally and was ordered to leave. Chinese statements described their actions as necessary measures to safeguard sovereignty and warned Japan against further provocations. There was no mention of Japanese Coast Guard intervention, only that the Chinese vessels completed their mission and resumed patrol along the Diaoyu Islands perimeter. The two sides' narratives barely overlap. Tokyo describes a defensive response to a foreign incursion, while Beijing frames it as expelling trespassers from its own waters. The only constant is the fishing boat caught between, with each government releasing selective details, and with no independent confirmation of the encounter's exact choreography, the facts remain as contested as the territory itself. Japan's F-35B fighters arrived just 4 months ago, delivered to Naha Air Base in August 2025. The F-35 is not just another jet, it is a stealth platform built to see without being seen, fusing radar, infrared, and signals intelligence into a single cockpit display. In theory, this gives Japan the ability to track adversary movements and respond before the other side even knows it is being watched. No previous Senkaku incident has involved 5th-generation aircraft. If Tokyo truly scrambled F-35 aircraft on December 2nd, 2025, the meaning would be clear. The threshold for military involvement has shifted, and both sides now face a shorter fuse for escalation. But the record is far from clear. The Japanese Ministry of Defense has not issued a press release confirming any F-35 launch that morning. There are no radar tracks, flight logs, or call signs in the public domain. Defense reporters searching for confirmation have found only silence. Former Japan Air Self-Defense Force pilot Captain Hiroshi Sato, who flew F-35s until his retirement last year, describes the protocol. A scramble order is logged, radioed, and tracked from the moment it is given. If F-35s took off, there would be a paper trail. Bonnie Glazer, a leading expert on Chinese security policy, notes that rumors of stealth fighter deployments often spread faster than facts. She warns that the lack of documentation should make everyone pause. In an environment this tense, misinformation can drive decisions as much as reality. Until official records surface, the F-35 scramble remains a claim, one with enormous strategic weight but still unproven. The question now is not just what happened in the air, but how uncertainty itself becomes a weapon. If you want to keep up with every new development and expert insight on this flashpoint, subscribe now for ongoing coverage. In September 2010, a Chinese fishing trawler collided with 2 Japanese Coast Guard vessels near the Senkaku Islands. The incident ended with Japanese authorities detaining the captain, sparking weeks of protests across China and a freeze in diplomatic relations. 2 years later, Tokyo announced the nationalization of 3 of the islands, purchasing them from a private Japanese owner. That move triggered another wave of Chinese patrols, mass demonstrations, and the severing of some bilateral exchanges. By 2025, these confrontations had become routine. According to official records, Chinese government vessels entered waters claimed by Japan around the Senkakus 25 times in just the first 11 months of the year. The pattern shifted sharply on November 16, 2025, when 4 Chinese Coast Guard ships, armed with visible deck-mounted machine guns, crossed into the 12 nautical mile zone east of the islands. Japanese patrols responded in force, using radio and electronic message boards to demand withdrawal. The Chinese ships lingered for nearly 2 hours before finally moving south. The frequency and intensity of these encounters have only increased, each incident stacking risk on top of risk. Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi addressed the Diet on November 7th, warning that any Chinese attack on Taiwan would represent an existential threat to Japan and could trigger military action. Her statement drew immediate condemnation from Beijing and set the tone for a winter of confrontation. In this context, the December 2nd standoff was not an isolated event, but the latest spike in a long rising curve. The record of the past 15 years shows a region inching closer to the edge, where one miscalculation could ignite something far larger. 3 scenarios keep defense planners awake at night. Admiral Yoji Koda, former commander of Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force, describes the first: a collision at sea. In crowded waters, ships maneuvering at close range risk a miscalculation, one wrong turn, a delayed engine order, a helmsman's slip. In 2001, a US Navy EP-3 collided with a Chinese fighter over Hainan, triggering a diplomatic crisis that lasted weeks. Around the Senkakus, the stakes are higher. A ramming incident between Coast Guard vessels, or even a fishing boat caught in the wrong place, could spark demands for immediate retaliation. The risk is not theoretical. Each year, Japanese and Chinese ships operate within meters of each other, sometimes exchanging paint, always exchanging warnings. The second pathway runs through the AIR. M. Taylor Fravel, an expert in Asian security, points to the danger of misidentification. With both sides deploying advanced surveillance aircraft and possibly stealth fighters, radar signatures can be ambiguous. A pilot mistaking a Coast Guard helicopter for a military asset, or losing track of a contact in heavy weather, could open fire before confirming intentions. The speed of modern jets leaves little time for second guesses. Communications breakdowns, language barriers, and unfamiliar call signs only add to the confusion. The third risk lies in the invisible realm of sensors and signals. Networked radars, electronic jammers, and automated threat detection systems now play a central role in maritime operations. But these tools are far from foolproof. False alarms triggered by flocks of birds, civilian drones, or even weather phenomena can prompt a rapid escalation. Algorithms designed to respond to threats may not distinguish between a fishing trawler and an armed patrol boat. In a region where every move is tracked and interpreted as hostile, a single sensor glitch could trigger a chain reaction none of the commanders intended. 3 pathways: collision, misidentification, and sensor error, each capable of turning a routine patrol into a regional crisis. As the number of encounters grows, so does the margin for error. The next incident may not leave room for diplomacy before the shooting starts. Stretching from southern Japan to the northern tip of the Philippines, the first island chain forms a natural barrier across the western Pacific. The Senkaku Islands sit near the northern end, but the tension radiates far beyond these disputed rocks. Just 1,200 kilometers south, the Philippines faces its own standoffs in the South China Sea, where Chinese vessels routinely challenge Filipino patrols and fishermen. Filipino maritime law scholar J. Batong Bakal notes that every escalation around the Senkaku Islands sends shockwaves down the chain, raising alarms in Manila about the risk of a broader confrontation. For both Japan and the Philippines, these islands are not isolated disputes. They are pressure points in a single, connected arc of competition. The pattern is clear. What happens in the East China Sea shapes the security posture all the way to the Luzon Strait and beyond. Washington's position could not be clearer. On November 17th, United States Ambassador to Japan George Glass posted a message of public support. He said the alliance between the United States and Japan is steadfast in its resolve to preserve peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. He added that the United States strongly opposes any unilateral attempts to change the status quo of the region through force or coercion. The statement landed just days after the November standoff, signaling that the United States is watching every move around the Senkaku Islands. Behind closed doors, American and Japanese officials coordinated messages and contingency plans. The United States' presence in the Pacific, anchored by mutual defense treaties, means that any escalation in these waters draws in not just regional actors, but global powers. For Tokyo, United States backing is more than symbolic. It is a reminder that the Senkaku dispute has outgrown its local roots, tying Japan's fate to the credibility of its most important ally. Today, every maneuver in these disputed waters risks triggering a regional crisis because the line between signal and miscalculation grows thinner with each encounter. As Asia's military technology sharpens, so does the potential for unintended war. The world's most volatile flashpoints now move at supersonic speed.